What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's too hot today. I can't tell you how hot it is. We're actually gonna need air cons in the UK now. It's unbearable. Look at my face. I'm literally sweating and my face is full of oil. It's reminding me of Pakistan, although I haven't experienced Pakistani summers in the last 15 years, but it's too much, man, seriously. Now that said, let's dive into today's perfume review. So if you're new here, this channel is all about honest fragrance reviews. I focus on what I generally experience from a fragrance, both the good and the bad, so that you can decide whether it's worth your money or not. Today we are looking at Dior Sauvage EDP. Now Dior Sauvage EDP is one of the most ubiquitous men's fragrances in the world. Some people call it a modern masterpiece, while others think it's completely overrated. And I'm guessing simply because almost everyone seems to own a bottle of this perfume. So instead of repeating what you've probably heard 100 times already, I'm going to answer the questions that actually matter. What does it really smell like? Who is it for? When should you wear it? How does it perform? And finally, is it actually really worth it buying it in 2026? Now let's start with the official notes. According to Dior, Sauvage EDP opens with bergamot. Now if you're new to fragrances, then it's really important for you to know that bergamot isn't just another lemon or orange. It's actually a citrus fruit, which is widely used in perfumery because it gives fragrances that bright sparkling freshness without smelling like a glass of orange juice. In the middle we have Sichuan pepper, lavender, star anise and nutmeg. And I think personally that is where the fragrance starts developing its character. The pepper adds a spicy kick. Lavender brings that clean aromatic quality that stops the fragrance from becoming too harsh. Star anise introduces a slightly sweet licorice-like facet, which although is very subtle, I believe that's the word I'm looking for, rather than pronounced, but that's just in my opinion. You can disagree. Nutmeg gives warmth and helps bridge the fresh opening with the richer dry down. Finally in the base, we have ambroxan and vanilla. Now ambroxan is one of the most talked about ingredients in the modern perfumery. Some people absolutely love ambroxan because it creates a very fresh, woody and almost skin-like scent that projects well and lasts for hours. And others simply can't stand it. I, however, tilt more towards the first category of the group. And now finally, having vanilla as the last base ingredient plays a very vital role, because it doesn't make Sauvage EDP smell like a dessert. Instead, I'd say that it adds a warm nuance which rounds off the sharp edges for a smoother finish. Now that's what the notes say on paper. Let's see what actually happens. Immediately the first thing that I notice isn't actually the individual notes, it's freshness. Yes, I can pick up the bergamot, but you know what? Hand on heart, if someone handed me this without telling me the note breakdown, I won't instantly say that's bergamot. Instead, I'd say that it's bright, clean and masculine. Look at the oil concentration on this perfume. Crazy. Within a minute or two, I start noticing pepper. It's not overpowering, but it adds just enough spice to stop the fragrance from feeling boring. What surprises me is how smooth the EDP feels. If you've smelled the EDT version before, you'll probably know that it's a bit more sharper and more assertive in the opening. The EDP feels as if those rough edges have been refined. You know what, they certainly have. From wearing this fragrance over the past few weeks, I think that dry down is where Sauvage EDP is at its best. Now after a couple of hours, the vanilla becomes more noticeable. Not sweet enough that someone will mistake it for a gourmand fragrance, but enough to make it feel more richer and more mature than the EDT version. Now the ambroxan remains throughout, giving it that clean, distinctive olfactive identity that many other fragrances have tried to imitate. Overall, I wouldn't describe this fragrance as unique anymore, but I would definitely describe it as incredibly well blended. You know, at no point does one note overpower the others. Everything works together to create a scent that's easy to enjoy. Who is this fragrance for? Now that is probably my most favorite part of any perfume review, because it's far more useful than just saying that it smells nice. So therefore, if you like clean and fresh fragrances that don't really demand any attention but still get you noticed, then you take my words that you're probably going to like. In fact, I'm fairly certain that you're definitely going to like Sauvage EDP. Now, if you want a minimal collection that seamlessly covers every single base, then this is the ultimate foolproof choice, which makes a lot of sense. Now, who might not enjoy it? If you are deep into niche perfumery and you're constantly chasing unconventional and artistic fragrances, then Sauvage might leave you wanting more, because it's not really designed to challenge your olfactory inclinations. In fact, it's designed to basically smell good to the majority of people. Also, if you have discovered that you are sensitive to Ambrox and heavy fragrances, then best test it before buying it, because some people perceive that note much strongly than others. When should you wear it? Now this is where Dior Sauvage EDP really earns its standing. Office? Absolutely. Dinner? Yes. Date night? Definitely. Weekend shopping? No problem. Traveling? Do you know what? Perfect. If I had to compare Dior Sauvage EDP to another fragrance that dominated an entire era, I'd actually compare it to Paco Rabanne 1 million. Years ago, almost every guy owned a bottle of 1 million, and apparently decided that 10 sprays were the bare minimum to leave the house. The popularity of 1 million wasn't a mad science experiment. It just worked, it smelled good and got results. And I personally believe that Dior Sauvage EDP is today's generation's equivalent now. A scent that you can't escape even if you try. While 1 million was a loud, sweet, attention-grabbing perfume, Dior Sauvage, however, I would say is fresher, cleaner, and much more easier to wear everyday fragrance. There is also one thing that I really appreciate about Dior Sauvage, is that it doesn't really force you into your particular setting. There are perfumes that I feel are made precisely for date nights. Others I feel as if they're made only for formal occasions. So Dior Sauvage sits comfortably in the middle somewhere. That's one of the reasons it has been remained so widely admired for so long. Now let's talk about the performance of this perfume. The performance has been consistently good for me. I comfortably get through a full working day with this perfume. The projection, I would say, is strongest during the first couple of hours before settling closer to the skin. Personally, I think this perfume performs best during spring, autumn and cooler summer evenings. You can wear this in winters as well as on a hot summer day, and that's what makes this perfume so versatile. Now, if I'd have to pick one season, then I'd probably lean towards spring, because that's when the freshness of this perfume really comes alive. Now, as for day versus evening wear, I'd say Sauvage slightly fall more towards the daytime, because the freshness gives it a bright and energetic character that feels very natural, at least to myself. Now that said, that added smoothness in vanilla and the dry down also means that it transitions into evenings effortlessly, so you don't really have to worry about dates. Now let's talk about the negatives. The first one for me is actually originality. The DNA of this perfume has been copied so many times that it no longer feels surprising. And that's not actually Dior's fault, to be honest. If anything, I'd say that it's actually a proof of how influential Sauvage really became. But also, what it does mean is that if you're wearing this perfume, then you won't particularly feel unique, if you know what I mean. The second drawback is actually the price. You're paying for Dior's quality, branding, and I can't seem to say this word. It just doesn't flow on my tongue. Consistency, in my opinion. Now, whether that's something worth it or not is actually only you can decide. For me personally, I'd say that they should spend a little more money on the packaging. I mean, look at this cheap looking packaging. It's simply failed first impression for me. And there's a saying back home that you don't really get a second chance to make the first impression. Now, this fragrance is so popular that there's a decent chance of you'll run into someone else wearing the same perfume. Now, for some people it won't matter, but for others, uniqueness is important. I think if you've been collecting fragrances for years, then Sauvage might feel a little too safe. It's not bad, it's not boring, it's just familiar. And familiarity can sometimes reduce excitement. And that, in my subjective opinion, by the way, that's a fact. Now my final verdict is Sauvage EDP worth buying it in 2026? In my opinion, yes. Not because it's niche, and certainly not because it's the most original fragrance out there on the market. It's worth buying it because it consistently delivers exactly what most people want. A fragrance that smells clean, performs well, works in almost every situation, and is easy to wear without overthinking it. For me, Dior Sauvage gets a 7.5 out of 10. What impresses me most about Dior Sauvage, by the way, isn't any singular note or feature. It's actually the fact that it manages to harmonize freshness, versatility, and performance in a way that it appeals to a huge number of people. I'm pretty sure there may be more unique fragrances out there. There may be more complex fragrances out there. But very few fragrances are as easy to recommend to the average person looking for a dependable everyday scent. And Dior Sauvage EDP is one of them. But those are just my thoughts. If you have worn Dior Sauvage EDP, then I would love to hear your experience. Did they live up to the hype, or do you think they're better options for the money? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.